Here to talk more about it, Princeton University political scientist Dr. Laura Wright. Welcome to you as always. Nice to see you. So the RNC chair, first of all, how important of a position is this? How much power does this individual, wield?
Well, it's really a powerful position from an election strategy and planning perspective. Coordinating all of the Republican candidates around the country and fundraising is really the main objective of the RNC, and dispensing those funds in order for candidates to win. And so, Trump taking over the RNC, it's probably unreasonable to expect that he wouldn't play a role of some sort. But the question is really, does this make it more or less difficult for the party to raise funds, recruit people, and to win? That's the entire objective, Marnie.
So what do we know about Michael Wright, and why is he Trump's pick for this position?
Well, he's a really interesting figure, actually, because on the one hand, he's had a history as a political operative, pretty hard-nosed guy that worked in traditional Republican efforts like George W. Bush campaign, lots of campaigns around the country. I think his first one, he ran a candidate against Jesse Helms. So even sort of stepping against that very socially conservative, restrictive view that Republicans are more closely associated with now. But on the other hand, he's known more recently for his efforts to make voter fraud a more central campaign issue for Republicans. So that's the reason Trump loves him, is he's a loyalist in that way, but he's also got chops that are more in line with traditional conservatives. So there's probably a lot to make people angry here and a lot to make people happy, depending on what issues you think Republicans should be running on.
Will he face much resistance, you think, in getting the job?
Probably not, because Trump is so squarely in his corner, but actually the nomination process was pretty tumultuous at the national level. There were even people who suggested he got this far because his efforts were somewhat fraudulent, or the count wasn't exactly right, or there was something going behind the scenes. There's really mixed reporting about this, I should say that. But there are a lot of people who are upset about this person, and then there are some people who look at this and say, you know what, it's inevitable. The head of the party, the likely nominee, Trump, was going to have such a heavy hand in this anyway. Let's just let it happen and, expect hopefully that the organization will function optimally.
Let's talk about the financials here for a moment. So the former president appealing his $454 million New York civil fraud verdict. So there is talk and debate going on about whether or not the RNC would be responsible for paying any of Trump's legal bills. What's the conversation around that, and is there support for that?
Well, I think the 168 RNC members that are voting members are probably all pretty concerned about this, if they're honest. The RNC has the lowest amount of cash on hand that they've had in many years, about 8 million in the last filing, 1 million in debt. And then the national affiliates around the country have 11 million debt. And so to think that they could somehow be responsible for what it will probably amount to be in the hundreds of $1 million in legal fees and in the hundreds of $1 million of fines, the RNC just simply can't be responsible for that. And so regardless of whether you're a Trump loyalist or not, it's simply not feasible for the party to shoulder that sort of financial burden. With that said, Trump is, in effect, the biggest fundraising arm of the party. He does bring the money in. And so, of course, he's going to try to use this to his advantage. The rules are just very, very loose in that regard, Marnie. It's really up to the party to decide.
Yeah, in the back office, looking in the petty cash drawer, do we have enough? Nope, not today. We don't.
Definitely not.
Not even close. Dr. Laura Wright, as always, thanks. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Well, the Manhattan District